So, yeah, I'm going to be talking tonight about some of the principles, some of the techniques, and really the underlying principles that we use in this work. So, what is the Nathaniel method of neuromovement? ABM neuromovement is a holistic approach. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. Backtrack. Okay. So think of a time, the video messed me up. So think of a time in your life where you were either trying to learn something or improve a skill. So anyone has an example? It could be learning how to ice skate, learning how to do a backflip, learning a new language.
Cool, yeah. Learning how to edit videos.
Learning how to edit videos. Okay, so I want you to hold something in your mind of a time where you're trying to learn something new and see if you can apply some of the stuff that I'm talking about to learning that new skill. So an Nathaniel method, neuromovement, is it's a science-based, holistic approach that connects the mind and the body by using very specific movement sequences in a combination with what we call the 9 essentials. And so I'm going to be going through these 9 essentials, and basically by doing a combination of these two, we're able to have improvements in mental functioning, physical functioning, as well as emotional functioning and well-being. So, sorry, I'm going to go a few more things. ABM, we recognize that the brain controls our entire being, including movement, thinking, feeling, thoughts, as well as our emotions. And with neuromovement, we tap into something that's really important called neuroplasticity. And so we take advantage of something called neuroplasticity. And that's basically just the brain's ability to change. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. So this can be done 2 ways. One is called a functional synthesis. And this is a hands-on lesson. So I either work with a child one-on-one or I work with an adult one-on-one. And the other way is transformational movement lesson. And a TML, it's geared towards anyone, any age, any ability, wherever you're at in your life. Both of these are learning processes through movement. So you're learning how to improve function by using movement. So who is Nathaniel and who is Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais? So it's named after this woman here, Nathaniel. She's my teacher. And she is a powerhouse of a woman, really brilliant woman. She's the author of 2 books, and she studied as a clinical psychologist. Her teacher was this man here, Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais. And Dr. Feldenkrais, he's cute. He looks kind of like a Yoda or something, but he was a genius, a true genius. This man studied engineering. He studied neuroscience. He was a neuroscientist, and he also he was a judo master. He brought over judo from the originators of Japan. This man brought it to Europe. And so Moshe, by studying the way the brain worked, by studying how infants and babies moved, and by studying the fine relationships between the different body parts, like head and pelvis, through judo, he created his own method called the Feldenkrais method. And so the roots of our work are the Feldenkrais method. It's really the building blocks of our work. So the principles and techniques I'm going to be talking about today are based in neuroscience. We have 2 people that talk about our work a lot, a man named Dr. Michael Merzenich and Norman Deutsch. Norman Deutsch wrote the book, The Brain That Changed Itself. And a really important note to make about these principles and these techniques is they're universal. They don't just work on, it's for a wide variety of people. It's not just for children who have special needs or someone that suffered a stroke. It works for athletes. It works for musicians. It works for your everyday person just trying to improve their life. And why these principles are so wide is because it deals with the underlying fundamental processes of how the brain learns, grows, and develops. So these are universal principles. And so as I go through it, you can relate whatever you're trying to learn or improve your function, you can relate some of these principles to that. So the first essential is movement with attention. Moshe Feldenkrais said, movement is life. Without movement, life is unthinkable. And I think this is a really beautiful quote. It's like, say for instance, I'm lying in bed, and you wouldn't think I'm moving, but there's movement, and I'm sleeping. There's movement of my lungs, of my breath. There's movement of my dreams, my thoughts. Say someone pisses me off at work and I'm really angry. You get angry at work, and then you go out to your car and you receive a sad text from someone. That's movement of your emotions, going from angry to sad. So there's movement within everything. And movement with attention, the few main things here are, instead of moving automatically and mindlessly, we start to pay close attention to what we feel and sense as we move. And when we do this, when we start to pay close attention to what we feel and sense as we move, new neural connections start forming in the brain. So Dr. Michael Merzenich did research. He started research in like the 1980s on neuroplasticity, and he found that movement done with attention, there is positive brain change. New neural connections start forming, whereas movement done without attention, there is little or no change in the brain. So this is a really, really key point here. So I'm just going to grab a drink of water. So that's movement with attention. Right, okay. So the next essential here is slow. So this is essential number 2. So we have this belief in our lives that if we're going to do anything well, it should be done fast. You know, it's like, if we're going to, no problem. If we're going to do anything well, it should be done fast.
Sorry.
That's all good. The problem with fast is we can only do what we already know. With fast, you can only do what you already know. So going slow and slowing down gives the brain an opportunity to notice. It gives the brain a chance to feel what's going on. So when you give the brain an opportunity to feel, as you start to feel, feeling is really the source of information. And as you increase your information, you increase your intelligence. So feeling is really, really important. And don't get me wrong, fast is important. Like if I'm going to go get groceries, I want to be able to do that fast, in a fast way. But if we're trying to learn a new skill or improve a function, or if we're dealing with someone that has suffered a brain injury, we really want to give their system time, give your system time to start noticing the differences. An example from Norman Deutsch's book is like snow on a hill. If I toboggan down a fresh hill of snow, I can go any direction I want, right, left, wherever, right? After you've taken that path 100, 200, 300 times, it starts to get more deeply grooved in, and a rut forms, right? You get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And this represents our movement patterns, our belief patterns, our thought patterns. They become habituated. We become grooved in. And so to get out of that onto fresh snow, it's really hard when you're going fast. But if you slow down, you're more able to get out onto fresh powder. So going slow gives the brain new information, and you can feel what's going on. So slow is a really, really important essential. Next one here is variation. Variation is a necessity for learning. Anytime you learn any skill, variation is such a key component in it. For example, if we're doing the same movement patterns, if we're doing the same belief patterns, if you're doing the same ways of communicating with your spouse, you're going to get the same results. If you want something different, you have to do something different. So variation is the intentional introduction of a difference. And when you start intentionally introducing differences to the system, it's like a child learning to stand. You know, they stand up and their head's over here and they fall. They stand up, their head's over here and they fall. They stand up, their head's back here and they fall. So through all those variations and permutations of learning what to do with the head in space, they learn what it takes to have successful standing and successful walking. So it's such an important thing. It's like, if I'm trying to learn tennis or a racket sport, you have to do tons of variations in order to get better at that. And variation, this really helps flood your brain with new information. An example from my practice, so I did my practicum before becoming certified. An example from my practice, I work with this 14-month-old baby, cutest baby, so cute. And he suffered a stroke before birth, so he had a stroke in utero. And so the left side of his body was relatively not there. And what I noticed about this baby was the use of his lower back was relatively unmapped in his brain. He didn't have much movement, and the lower back is such a key component in movement, and he didn't have much movement there. And so over we call them intensives, but it's blocks of lessons. Over a few blocks of lessons, I introduced tons of variations. Variation with the leg, getting the pelvis at different angles, introducing the ribs, introducing the arms to the movement, and giving his system a much more rich flow of sensations and experiences. And for the first time in this boy's life, he got up onto his hands and knees unassisted on my table, which was, it's one of those moments where you're like, this is why I'm doing this. So it was really, really beautiful. So next one here is subtlety. This is essential number 4. This is another belief we have. If we have pain somewhere, if we're trying to improve our mobility or flexibility, we should stretch, we should try harder, we should force. Now, forcing works for some things. If I'm trying to grow my quads, I'm going to have a barbell on my back and go to the gym and put stress in my system to grow my quads. However, when you're trying to learn a new skill, or when you're dealing with someone that has a brain injury, forcing the system, what happens when you force them to do something they're currently unable to do, they'll either A, learn their limitation, or it'll actually inhibit them further or limit them further. So instead of forcing, subtlety is the intentional introduction or reduction, of force. So it's intentionally reducing our force of what we do, our force. And when you do this, when you start reducing the force of what you're doing, the system can start to notice the fine differences. So when you reduce the force, the system is able to notice the fine differences. And when you're able to notice the fine differences, then you're able to pick a path out of those fine differences. It's like a difference between easier breathing or harder breathing. You find a way of breathing easier, you'll breathe easier. Between yes or no, up and down. Knowing the difference is really important. So a law we talk about in our work is called the Weber-Fechner law, and this is something we follow. So the Weber-Fechner law states that a just noticeable difference in a stimulus is proportional to the magnitude of the original stimulus. And so I'll give you an example. If we're at a rock concert, say we're trying to have a conversation face to face, and your face is here. First of all, if it's AC/DC, I don't want to talk to you. I want to listen to the concert. But in all honesty, so I'm trying to have a conversation with you. I can't notice what you're saying. Why? Because there's this massive background stimulus. I have to go to a quiet room with you in order to understand and get the fine differences, the intonations, the change in pitch, volume, tone. Then we can have a conversation when both of us are noticing the differences. It's the same with a child who has special needs, or you learning together with pain, or whatever. It's as the child's able to notice more and more finer differences, it upgrades their brain. So if I'm trying to come at them with communication through touch or whatever, and I'm being forceful and forceful and forceful, they won't know to notice the fine differences of what I'm trying to communicate. So subtlety is a really important one. Oh, another example from my practice. So I worked with this lady. She suffered a stroke, but she's in her 50s, and it was a pretty severe stroke in her lower brainstem. And you can get water if you want to. It's a stroke in the lower brainstem, and so the whole left side of her was pretty much not working anymore, and her right arm kind of had a tremor to it, and so instead of doing stretching exercises and forcing her arm into something she's currently unable to do, I use the essentials. I go slow, I do movement with attention, I use variations, and I use subtlety. And when I reduced my force, her arm was able to let go. And as it let go, then I could start remapping some of the patterns in her brain. So moving the hand to the mouth is it's a fetus position movement. It's like very early. It's a very early pattern. And then doing things like touching the shoulder, touching her other arm, remapping that. And after 2 blocks of intensives, I came in on the Monday, and she's still progressing. I just had an update, but I came in on the Monday, and this woman, it was unbelievable. So she was able to take verbal commands, or not commands isn't the right word, verbal instructions. So I could say, okay, reach with your right hand to touch your left hand. And she'd slowly reach and touch her left hand. And then your left forearm, and she'd reach forearm, then elbow, then shoulder, then belly. And so I was just like, I was working with her, and it was just like, am I dreaming? Like, what is going on? So it was really cool. So with subtlety, the brain can notice very fine differences and then select the best path. Okay, flexible goals. So this is number 5, and this is another belief we have. We have this belief that if we have a goal, we should muscle through it, and we should go for it in the shortest route possible, and kind of have like a tunnel vision, and just block out everything else, right? And this works for some goals. Again, if I had a gym goal or something. But the thing about having the tunnel vision approach is you miss the richness of the process. You miss all the information. Just focusing on that goal, you miss all the other stuff that's going on out here. So when you have a flexible approach, you're open to allow different possibilities, different information. You're open to allow new novel pathways to take a ride at your goal. But when you get rigid and when you get compulsive around a goal and too intent on reaching that goal, what tends to happen usually? We tend to not reach our goal, and then we have a sense of failure, a sense of disappointment, I'm not good enough. So a flexible goals approach is really important. And this is something that we always talk about in our work, and we talk about it with the children. If she could, she would. If he could, he would. So if any one of you knew how to attain your goal right now, you would. 100% you would. If you knew how to do if I knew how to do a backflip right now, I would. The problem is I don't have the sufficient amount of information and differentiation around that to do that goal. Okay. Next one, enthusiasm. Number 6 here, enthusiasm. This is like a skill. It's like a muscle. It's like something you can bring into a conversation. And there's 2 types of enthusiasm. There's an external enthusiasm of being really loud and what's up and hey and like really out there. But then there's an internal enthusiasm. And so in our work, we talk about the internal enthusiasm. And having an internal enthusiasm is having the ability to get excited and enthusiastic about that which you feel and do. And in our work, the building of our work is recognizing change. So there either is a change or there isn't a change. We don't put a quantity on the amount of change. It's like with children's movement vocabulary. If you're watching them, parents are like, I see no change, I see no change, I see no change. And then they're standing and, oh, there's change, right? But there's actually millions of little tiny pieces that child has to pick up before they get to standing. So having an internal enthusiasm about getting excited about what that child is feeling and the changes they're sensing, and it's also with you. It's like if you have a lesson with me, or we're going to do a little mini movement lesson here in a moment, but it's getting excited about the changes. And when you do this, when you get excited about the changes, it amplifies them and it tends to integrate them more. It's like, oh my gosh, that felt so good. I'm going to get excited about that. So change is and enthusiasm is really important. Next one, number 7, the learning switch. Your brain can be in 2 states. It can be in a learning mode, or it can be in a non-learning mode. And children are pretty much all the time in a learning mode. Their learning switch is always turned on. So anything that happens to them, anything that they experience, will change them. And they don't care if it's garbage information or good information, they're going to take that in. So it's a really, really important thing to think about when we're dealing with children. But as we age, as we tend to get older, we tend to turn down our learning switch or turn it off completely. And then we become stagnant. We aren't really improving. And so what I challenge you guys to do is turn on your learning switch. Get excited about stuff again. Learn a new language. Get back in school. Learn stuff. Because when you're in that learning mode, you're developing, you're improving yourself. So And that's when you're in that learning mode, you can start changing and improving rapidly. So that's number 7. Number 8 is imagination and dreams. So imagination and dreams. Einstein said imagination is everything. It's a preview to life's coming attractions. I love that quote. And, excuse me, this is our ability to live life and do things without actually doing them in the external world, but experiencing them internally fully. So it's a really amazing capacity to use, and it's a powerful tool that we tend to underestimate. We don't use it that much, and from the point of view of the brain, it doesn't know the difference that well. Another example from Norman Deutsch's book, he talks about, they did a study. So they had 2 groups. One group physically played the piano for 5 days, 2 hours of practice a day. The other group imagined playing the piano for 2 hours a day for 5 days. At the end of the 5 days, the physical group was better at playing piano. But the interesting thing was that with just 2 additional hours of physical playing, the group that imagined caught up in terms of ability and capabilities of playing the piano to the group that physically played. So it's a really powerful tool that we tend to underestimate. We don't use it that much. And the advantage of imagination is you can use it if you're unable to do something, let's say a movement or building a website or playing a new instrument or something. You can use imagination before doing it, and by doing that you can find a pathway there. So let's say you have pain, and it's like even you're doing a really tiny movement and there's still pain there. You can use imagination to start growing the neural pathways of having it comfortable, easy, smooth, and once you do that, you start to build a pathway there. So imagination is a huge one. Next one here is awareness. This is the last essential, awareness, and this is kind of what all the essentials build to. Awareness is our ability to know we know. This is our ability to have an evolved self, an enlightened self. Other animals have consciousness, but we have this remarkable capacity of awareness. When we're acting on automatic, when we don't know we're doing some things, sometimes, like I had an example where I lost my phone. I don't know where my phone is. I search my house, I'm ripping apart my bed, I can't find it. I search for probably an hour. I give up searching. 2 hours later, I'm hungry, so I go into the fridge, and it's sitting on the shelf of the fridge. So how does that happen? That's me acting without awareness. I don't know what I'm doing, so then I do something without awareness.
We all getting older.
Yeah, we're just, I guess I'm getting old. So awareness is our remarkable capacity of the brain. And this is essential for self-knowledge. Awareness is really essential for self-knowledge. And awareness is essential for rapid, miraculous, powerful learning. So anytime you're learning a new skill, or a child's learning a new skill, they have to have their awareness switch on. They have to be in an awareing mode. So last example with awareness. When we don't know what we do, we can't do what we want. So it's like having an internal map. If I don't know where I'm going, I can't go where I want to go. If I'm trying to drive to Banff, let's say, and I don't know I'm going to Banff, I'm just going to be driving. I have to have the awareness of where I'm going in order to do that. So those are the 9 essentials. So we had movement with attention, we had slow, we had variation, subtlety, enthusiasm, flexible goals, the learning switch, imagination and dreams, and awareness. I might have missed 1 or 5 or all 9. It's okay. But so now we're going to do a mini movement lesson. And so as we go through this movement lesson, I want you guys to keep in mind these essentials and do the movement lesson with these essentials in mind. So stand up. So remember to do these slowly, movement with attention, use awareness. Okay, so first thing, without stretching, straining, or trying hard, bend your knees a little bit and just reach down in the direction of your toes and just see how far you go. Just see how far, without stretching or straining, and then come back up. and then come right back up. And just notice how far you went without stretching or straining. Okay. Now, using the essentials, really use these essentials. So bend down and lean on your knees like you're watching a football game or something. And really have straight arms. And now round your back, pull your belly in, and look at your belly button. And then slowly, slowly arch your back, push and free your lower abdomen, push your belly out, and look up at the ceiling. And do this slowly, slowly, really slowly, and feel your whole spine. And again, round, look at your belly button, slow. Go a quarter of the speed, all of you, go a quarter of the speed you think that slow is. So go really slow, and then look up at the ceiling again, and use your whole spine. From the tip of your tailbone to the top of your head, use your whole spine. Feel your spine in the middle of your spine, the lower spine, the upper spine, and then back, look down at your belly button. Perfect. And now, slowly, slowly, now look under the right armpit. So round your back, look under the right armpit. And then slowly, slowly, arch your lower back, free the abdomen, and look over your right shoulder to see your right back, where your right back pocket would be. Over your right shoulder, right back pocket. And then round your back, look under your right armpit, slowly, slowly. Arch your back, slowly, slowly, slowly. Look over your right shoulder at where your right pocket would be on your back pants. Now, round your back, look under the left armpit, slow, and feel your whole spine. And then arch your back, look over the left shoulder at where your left pocket would be. See if you can see your left pocket. And then, now stand up again. Okay, and now without forcing, stretching, straining, or trying hard, bend your knees just a little and reach down towards your toes. And see if you...
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Oh my God.
come back up. So take a seat.
That's
Ooh.
So, what just happened? First of all, how many of you went further? Raise your hand. And how many of you was it easier? Raise your hand. And so, what happened? What just happened? Your brain changed in a positive direction. So we took a reference movement, the original movement, and usually we stretch, right? We force and we stretch. But instead of forcing and stretching, we used the 9 essentials. We did it slowly. We did movement with attention to what you're feeling, using your whole spine. We used variation. We added different variations of doing it. And we gave your system more information to work with. So then when you go back and do it, it's way easier. So this really represents all of our movement lessons and our hands-on. It's a learning process through movement. So what is the job of the brain? In simple terms, the brain puts order into the disorder and makes sense out of the nonsense. The brain is constantly taking in information from the environment. Sounds, people, smells, noises, all of this information, all this noise. I kind of call it noise. And it turns it into information we can use, into something that we can make sense out of. And this is a really, really important note. The brain responds to its experience and changes continuously. The brain responds to its experience. So, next point here is neuroplasticity. So this is our brain's ability to learn, to grow new neural connections, to change, to mold. And this can happen at any age. It can happen at a 1-year-old or a 100-year-old. It doesn't matter. We have this ability now. It's a recognized thing that our brain has the ability to change. The thing is, though, we can change in a positive direction or a negative direction, really depending on the conditions we're creating for the system, how we're interacting with the system. The brain responds to its experience. This is such an important key, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to jump right to mechanical versus information system. So a mechanical system is like, I know if I apply force to this chair, I can move it. I know if I have a problem with my heart, I can put a heart stent in and mechanically fix it. The brain, however, is an information system. And when we try to approach or influence the brain using the mechanical system approach, usually the mechanical system approach is forceful. And remember, like I talked about just a slide ago, the brain learns its experience. If we're forcing the system into something it's currently unable to do, this is huge with children, but also with you, if you have pain or with one of your clients or whatever. If you're forcing them into something they're currently unable to do, they will learn their experience. The brain learns its experience, you're going to learn your experience. So if within that experience there is a limitation, they will learn that limitation. And this is such an important point. They will learn that limitation. So it's like a child, we really don't believe in putting a child into standing before they're ready to be in standing. If you put a child into standing and they learn that standing is contracting the abdomen, holding everything tight, or if you're holding them and their head's back here, they're going to learn that this is standing. They have to experience it themselves. If you're forcing, it's like, an example I always give is, if you took a child in grade 8, he's just learning a squared plus b squared equals c squared, just starting to learn math, and you throw him into an advanced algebra, advanced calculus grade 12 class. He's going to learn a little bit. He's going to pick up a little bit in the class, maybe pick up a few things. But the biggest thing he's going to pick up, he's going to learn his experience. What's his experience going to be? It's going to be, I'm not good at math, I'm stupid, I'm not smart, I'm not good at school, all these things. When in reality, that child just needs more time to integrate. He needs more information. He needs to slowly progress more in the complexity of the math before he's ready to do that. So really, really important note, mechanical versus information system. The brain is an information system. Okay, I guess last point here. What time are we at? So what is stimulation? Yeah, we're doing good. So what is, it's only been 30, wow. Okay, so what is stimulation? We tend to associate stimulation with information. If I stimulate you in some way, we tend to associate that with information. Stimulation is totally important. It's really important in all our world, but it doesn't equate to information. The way stimulation is turned into information is when there is a perception of a difference. So in order to turn stimulation into information, in between there has to be a perception of a difference. A difference, again, between easier breathing, up and down, loud and soft. An example, it was a study done in 2008 by a man named Lorimer Muesli. They did a study on people suffering from chronic pain. They took two groups. Both groups put their arm behind a screen. So they had their arm behind a screen. And they were either touched with the cork of a wine bottle or the cap of a pen. So both had, that's different sensation, different width. One group was asked to perceive a difference. The other group was just stimulated. And after a process, because it is a process to change, after a process of a few weeks, the group that was asked to perceive a difference noticed and asked to perceive a difference had a reduction in chronic pain. So what does this tell us? We had two groups, both received stimulation. One group was asked to perceive a difference between, is this a cork or a wine bottle, or a cork or a cap? The other group was just touched and just said, sit there. After that perception of difference, that group used that information and turned it into relevant information they could use. So this is a huge one. Stimulation, it's like, if I'm working with a child, I can stimulate all I want if their arm's not working, or if it's not engaged. We can stimulate I can move it up and down, move it over here. I can do tons of stuff with that arm. But if that child internally is not noticing the difference between lifting, I don't know, one finger or all of the fingers, it's not going to stick for him. He has to notice the difference. So that's a huge point. Like we talked about, if he could, he would. So again, okay, I'll say one more thing about this. So if he could, he would. If she could, she would. Again, if you knew how to attain your goal, you would. The thing is, you just don't have sufficient amount of information. When we force, it's like if I force any one of you to do something you're currently unable to do, you're going to learn your limitation within that. It's going to be unpleasant. You don't want to be forced to do something you don't want to do, right? Yeah. So instead of that's driving negative brain change. Instead of driving negative brain change, let's drive positive brain change. So how can we do that? With the 9 essentials. So the 9 essentials are for getting the brain to do its job better. These drive positive brain change. So that is the end of my presentation.
Yay!
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. And so coming back to it, it's like, remember you're learning how?
Oh, my example was video editing.
Video editing.
Yeah.
So when you're learning that new skill, you use those essentials, right? You have to go slowly. You have to do it with attention. You have to have awareness of where you're clicking on the video. You have to use variations of clicking this way than that way. So these are really essentials that you use anytime you're learning. So throughout your life, you can take a pamphlet or a card here, and throughout your life, the coming weeks, choose an essential. Choose slow or variation, and just use it for the week. If you're chopping vegetables, see if you can do it really slowly. If you're, I don't know, swimming at the gym, see if you can swim in 100 different variations. Swim like a frog, then swim with just one side of your body. See if you can do that without drowning. But not actually, that's bad. But yeah. So, anyways, I really appreciate all you guys for coming out tonight, and thank you so much. And so I'm gonna, since you came out tonight, I'm offering 20% off on a block of lessons. So if you want to book a block of lessons, yeah.
And what's a block of lessons?
So a block of lessons, the minimum we do in our work is 5 lessons, 5, and then we go up to 10. So with children, I only do intensives. With adults, though, I'm going to be doing 3 lessons. So you can book minimum of 3 lessons, because for, like, the nervous system is just so amped up in our society all the time. So getting someone coming in the door and they're just like, and they're just go, go, go. It takes 1 or even 2 lessons to get, first of all, a connection and a trust between us. And even on a subconscious level where it's like, you trust me to lift your leg, then I'm not going to drop it or something like that. So, yeah.
And then of those 3 or 5 or 10 lessons, are they back to back? Are they once every 2 weeks?
Good question. So with children, something like two lessons a day we do. So 2 lessons a day for 5 days. With an adult, 1 lesson a day for 3 days, or 1 lesson a day for 5 days. 1 lesson a day pretty much for adult is as much as I do, just because then we give your system time to integrate. So whatever you learn in the lesson, whether it's holding your bones better over your skeleton or whatever, having time to integrate that and use it, it gives you, again, like the snow example, we're getting you out onto fresh powder. It's different than your habitual. So it's very different, but it's easy to slip back into your habitual ways of moving.
Okay, and so they'll say it's 3 treatments just for,
Yeah.
can you do once every 3 weeks, or should you wait till you can commit to the 3 in a row?
I think that's a good question. I think that it would be better to do it back to back, because then we can build. Again, it's like if I do a lesson with you and we do it again in a week, that week you're going to go back to your habitual.
Okay.
So I'd probably say doing, back to back.
So do you work on one thing? Do we tell you what to work on, or do you, like, how do you?
Well, you can tell if you have pain somewhere, or if you have a limitation somewhere or something like that, we can work on that. But there's a few main principles. Like, one of them is organizing your skeleton. So anytime, I think I talked a little bit with you, Heidi, but it's like anytime I do this, so now I'm using excessive muscular effort to hold myself up. So it could be more minute, like just with your head, but organizing yourself more over your bones, it's like anytime your bones are a little bit not disorganized or not aligned in the most efficient way, you're using excessive efforts, and there's actually a shearing force on your muscles or tendons. So one example is just getting more over your bones, reminding you of your skeleton. Anytime with artwork, it's really about connecting with the bones. So anytime I touch, I'm trying to visualize the bones.
And how long is a session?
Session 45 minutes. With a child, it's different. So, but I book an hour, so we can talk a little bit, but then 45 minutes on the table. But with a child, it can vary. If there's a change or something, I won't keep harping and harping and harping. So that's something that's different, is like with a child, if there's a change, it's done. So it could be 20 minutes. Like, but that's if there's a big change. I get that parents are like, we're paying a lot. It's like, what's going on here? But it's really important not to like when you learn something new, you have to give the system time to integrate and really feel. So just backing off and letting them feel is really important. Yeah.
Is there any research or anything connecting this to addiction at all?
No, but from personal experience. So doing the movement lessons, there's something so profound about it. Like, there's thousands of movement lessons. Anything from eye movements, like Feldenkrais created thousands of movement lessons. Anything from moving your eyes and improving, and so you do variations with the eyes, you close your eyes, cross your eyes, do all this stuff. Or doing really big movements like judo rolls, like rolling from the ground up, or doing stuff with your pelvis. And for me personally, when I do these lessons, it's like an escape from our world. It's like I just get so internal, and it's like just pressing through my foot is so pleasurable. And so I find that it helps create, I guess, meaning or something, where it's like addiction, you're trying, I feel like, to escape something. But then when I'm in my body and I'm really feeling and I'm having pleasure out of just moving my body, that's how movement should be. It should be pleasurable. It should be fun. And so having this exploration of like, oh, cool, look at challenging myself. So it's really about like lessons progressively increase in complexity. But it's just, I totally think, like, for me, it helped me for sure. Yeah.
Slow down, like you were saying, not be so go,
Yeah.
stressed, right?
Yeah, well, like for anxiety, huge. These lessons, it's just like all anxiety is gone. Because it's almost like a meditation. It's like, it's not a fitness class. You're training your brain to do something different. So it's like, and it's not about doing the movement. So it's like, lift your arm, or like, I don't know, press through your pelvis and roll your pelvis to the right. It's not about just rolling your pelvis. That's what we're taught in fitness. It's like, roll your pelvis. But it's really about feeling how you're doing it. What are you doing with your abdomen? Are you pressing through your foot? Like if you put a scale under your foot, are you pressing more through your foot, or are you doing the movement from your back? And yeah, it's just, I love it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so if you want a pamphlet or my cards, they're here, and I really appreciate you guys coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
That
you guys
was
too.
awesome. I'm glad we got to do a little